Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone.
I dedicate today's program to my beloved friend, Roberto. He died of AIDS at 31 in 1999. Roberto was not his given name, but I called him Roberto. He suffered hell. His mother was addicted to heroin. She disappeared when Roberto was in 6th grade. Probably she was murdered, but as far as I know, her body was never found. Roberto was sent to live with his uncle, who beat him, had sex with him. Crazy making to have the same person beat your body and have sex with you. And sadly, that is what millions of women have suffered for thousands of years from their husbands or their boyfriends, both beatings and sex from the same man. For many years, Roberto was severely addicted to sniffing spray paint, smoking cigarettes, to booze and other drugs. And like many gay and bisexual men, Roberto felt torn inside between religion and his sex with men. He felt torn inside between his family and his sex with men. His family accepted his slow suicide smoking cigarettes far better than his sex with men. The skies of Roberto's life were often dark and cloudy, but at moments, the brilliant sunshine broke through. Roberto's tenderness, his affection, his tears. He shed tears of sorrow with me. He opened his heart in conversations with me. He shared his naked body with me. I mailed a photo of Roberto and my friend Steve, both naked, to my dad in Illinois. My mother had already died. Roberto and I often told each other, "I love you." And once he dedicated a beautiful Spanish song to me on KNW radio. He said, "To Don, my best friend, I love." He made other song dedications to me, and I made song dedications to him. And on my answering machine, he left the message, "I love you, hugs and kisses." He told me he looked at my photo when he masturbated. And one time he said, "Think of me if you're masturbating or having sex." Roberto told me he wished he could start his life over and grow up without drugs. And back then, in the 1990s, I still cooked food. He called me from the emergency room at Presbyterian Hospital. He asked me to bring him some beans to eat. I took him beans. He kissed me and said, "I love you." And when he was in UNM hospital, I took him food. He kissed me outside the hospital when I left. And in our last conversation by phone, before he died, I'm so glad I told him, "I love you," And he said, I love you too. Sometimes Roberto asked me to mention him on my TV program back then in the 1990s. My grave at San Jose de Armijo Cemetery on Arenal, on the west side of Albuquerque, is very close, just one grave separate from Roberto's grave. My dear Roberto died of AIDS at 31 in 1999. When I was a teenager and in my 20s, I would have been absolutely shocked if anyone could have told me then that now, at 79, I no longer believe in a fair, loving parent God who hears and answers the desperate prayers of millions of suffering people for thousands of years. No, I do not believe anymore in a fair, loving parent God. I wish we had a fair, loving parent God who helped all people who pray desperately to him, but it just ain't true. My roots in the Christian faith are long and deep. And on my 8th birthday, I decided to publicly accept Jesus as my Savior. And for many years, I attended thousands of church services, revivals, evangelistic crusades. I was a founder of the Youth for Christ Club in my public high school in Illinois. I often carried my Bible with my school books in high school. And after high school, I majored in Bible at a Mennonite church college in Virginia. I became a very sincere young Christian preacher in Virginia 58 years ago, and later in Illinois, 59 years ago in Virginia. I was a Sunday school teacher. I was a Bible school teacher. I sang many solos in churches. I was a counselor for youth in church camps. But with the help of many people, many experiences, I slowly began to wake up and to question deeply my faith and the Bible. Church people who know me did not understand my slow, huge change. Before making a solemn vow to being romantic only with each other until one of you dies, try living together for 6 months or a year to see how your relationship works. Are either of you very insecure and jealous? Do you prefer to sleep in the same bed or separate beds? Can you imagine a peaceful divorce someday from that person, or a painful, bitter divorce? If someday you would divorce, do you refuse to blame it all on that other person as a devil? How do you talk about your past girlfriends or boyfriends to other people? If you become severely disabled with dementia, no longer capable of sex, do you want your partner to enjoy sex with someone else? I would treasure hot, affectionate sex and passionate romance with certain lean, healthy men who have no shame, no guilt about sex with men. But I do not want to marry any man on earth, no matter how strongly attracted I am to him, no matter how much I'm in love with him. I can be openly and deeply in love with more than one man at the same time, openly and deeply in love. So I would feel trapped. I would feel caged. I would feel suffocating in marriage to one man. I refuse to make this promise I would soon regret. I aim to tell the truth and not to make a foolish promise I later would want to break. Black U.S. Representative Hakeem Jeffries spoke over 8 hours in the U.S. House of Representatives against Trump's big, ugly bill. His speech, Black U.S. Representative Hakeem Jeffries, his speech over 8 hours was the longest ever spoken in the U.S. House of Representatives. And I called him in D.C., left a message at his office, complimenting him strongly. Black U.S. Senator Cory Booker spoke over 24 hours against the evils of the dangerous, lying, white, racist dictator Trump. And that speech was the longest ever spoken in the U.S. Senate. And I called his office in D.C., left a message strongly complimenting him. And I encouraged both of them to speak at least 2 hours, damning the U.S.-Israeli injuring and murder of hundreds of thousands of our Palestinian sisters and brothers in Gaza. I strongly compliment the black woman, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, on the U.S. Supreme Court. She is one of the 3 Supreme Court justices strongly supporting justice, human rights for ordinary people like you and me. Black woman Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. I strongly compliment her. Many diamonds sold in the United States are heartbreaking stories of greed, violence, mutilation. African children are forced into slavery to mine diamonds. And if these African children fail to work or produce, they're beaten. They're punished. Even their arms cut off. And many diamonds sold in the United States are these blood diamonds, agents of terror. And there's no easy way to know for sure if the diamond you buy is a blood diamond. If you have a conscience, why waste money on something no one needs? Why buy any diamond, even if you knew it were not a blood diamond? No one needs diamonds, while others in this world suffer hunger, cold in the winter, sickness, with no home. I will never buy diamond jewelry the rest of my life. boycott the whole diamond industry. I love to wear jewelry, brightly colored jewelry, especially something that has been given to me by precious friends. But I never want to pay big money for any jewelry, cheap or given. Yes. Colorful. Yes. Mothers and fathers, do your sons, your daughters of all ages feel and know they can tell you the full truth about their lives, and you will still love them deeply, regardless how much you disagree with what they tell you? Mothers and fathers, do you tell them the full truth about your lives? Do you welcome all their honest personal questions? If you don't, how can you expect them to tell the full truth about their lives to you? People's addiction to eating meat, cheese, milk, ice cream cause at least 1/3 of the catastrophic climate crisis. So I eat no meat, no dairy. A meat eater uses many times more land for their food than someone who eats only plant foods: fruit, vegetables, greens, seeds, nuts, herbs, beans. Raising animals for meat and dairy takes an enormous amount of water for the animals to drink, and then also to grow the crops for those animals to eat. Animals raised for food in the United States produce many times more shit than all the people in the United States. And runoff of shit from factory farms pollute rivers and lakes. Many fish contain poison chemicals. They can't help it. The water in which they live is poisoned by the runoff from the factory farms and from chemical factories, from the polluted waters of lakes and rivers. Chickens, pigs, turkeys, fish, cows are intelligent social animals. Do they want people to kill them? Hell no. They can suffer, these chickens, pigs, turkeys, fish, cows, can suffer and feel pain and fear just as we humans feel pain and fear. And as our pet dogs and cats can feel pain and fear. Billions of animals, billions, are imprisoned, mutilated, violently killed by the United States meat, dairy, and egg industries every year. I stopped eating meat. I stopped eating dairy. I stopped eating eggs many years ago. For thousands of years, tribes of people across the earth have each believed they were God's favorites. Tribes of people all over the world have believed they could pray and receive God's help to murder their enemies, to murder other tribes. And millions of Christians believe God will sentence billions of people who are not Christians to never-ending torture in hell with no pardon and no parole. Now, not all Christians believe that, but many millions do believe that God will send to hell to be constantly tortured, billions of people, forever. No pardon, no parole. Millions of Jews believe they are God's number one chosen people. Millions of Jews believe God gave Palestine to them, especially after the Nazi Holocaust. And millions of Jews believe their rights as Jews come before Palestinians still there in Gaza and in the West Bank. I compliment the many thousands of Jews in the United States and in Israel who do not believe that, who do not believe that God ordained that Israel is their land and that Palestinians have no rights. Many thousands of Jews have publicly protested against the evils of the Israeli government and the U.S. government that has supplied billions of dollars of weapons to Israel, knowing full well how Israel uses them, those weapons, to mass murder many thousands of Palestinian men, women, and kids, and to injure many thousands. Many thousands of Jews have publicly protested the U.S.-Israeli genocide of Palestinians. Some have been arrested in civil disobedience to take a stand for human rights for Palestinian people. And I strongly compliment those many thousands of Jews. And of course, many millions of Europeans came to North America believing their rights were more important than the Native Americans who lived here for thousands of years. And many of those Europeans who invaded North America mass murdered millions of Native Americans already living here. And those Europeans who did that thought killing millions of native people here was okay. But they thought men giving each other pleasure was evil. In fact, something I never learned in school, did you? That one evil excuse European invaders used to justify their murder of Native Americans was how common sex between men was in some Native American tribes. And sadly, in Europe, many men having sex with men and getting caught were burned to death at the stake. Get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Not enough sleep demolishes our immune system, so we catch contagious stuff going around. Not enough sleep doubles our risk of cancer. Doubles our risk of cancer. Not enough sleep sets us up for dementia, Alzheimer's. Not enough sleep can cause heart disease, strokes. Not enough sleep can lead to depression, anxiety, and suicide. Not enough sleep can make people fat. Get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And I strongly recommend the book Why We Sleep, Why We Sleep, by Matthew Walker in our public library. The best book I know about how important enough sleep is to be healthy in our bodies and our minds. Besides 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, a nap, a siesta in the early afternoon, 20 minutes to an hour, helps us be healthy. Very good for our hearts, very good for us to live long. Prescription drugs and some diseases can keep older people from getting the sleep that we all need. Enough sleep helps our memory. Enough sleep makes us more creative. Enough sleep helps how we look to be more attractive. Enough sleep protects us from cancer and dementia. Enough sleep helps to keep us lean and slim. Enough sleep lowers the risk of heart attack, stroke, diabetes. Enough sleep helps us to be happier, less depressed, less anxious, easier to live with. Helps prevent colds, flu, and COVID-19. We need enough sleep. Driving when sleepy is more dangerous than driving drunk. And sadly, I, Don Schrader, foolishly drove sleepy many times, many, many years ago. And no wonder my dear mother worried so much that I would crash. If I had my life to live over knowing what I know now, I would aim never, never to drive sleepy. I could have killed and injured myself. I could have killed and injured many other people. I strongly oppose driving when sleepy, and I strongly oppose driving after drinking booze. I've not driven any vehicle for over 25 years. And I drink no booze, not one damn drop. Not enough sleep can worsen PTSD and schizophrenia and all mental illness. All mental illness. The epidemic of not enough sleep is one of the worst health problems in the United States and in other industrialized nations. Nothing can substitute for enough sleep. We need to eat healthy, raw plant foods. We need to walk many days. I walk over 40 blocks to get where I want to go. We need sunshine on our naked skin. We need close friendships, because loneliness can kill us. We need to forgive ourselves. We need to forgive others. We need to apologize. We need to ask forgiveness. All of those are very, very important. But none of them can substitute for enough sleep if we want to live healthy and long. Aim for 7 to 9 hours in bed every night, no exceptions, and never consider yourself lazy for getting enough sleep. And never call anybody else lazy for getting enough sleep. My dear friends, Bob and Alberta lived in the town of Freeport, Illinois, 6 miles from the farm where I grew up and where my mother was born in that house. And when I became close friends with Bob and Alberta, they were an older couple already. They had a business in their home. And many people, including my parents, went to them to renew state licenses for cars and trucks. Most people who did business with them were neighbors in that town. Most people never knew the sex lives of this ordinary-looking, white, older couple. Bob told me if the people of that town, Freeport, Illinois, knew how he felt on sex and on politics, he would be run out of town. Bob supported justice and equality for black people, for all people, for women, for poor people. Bob was against U.S. wars. Bob and Alberta were open and honest with each other about their sex with other people. Little or no jealousy. They had 2 bisexual male friends, and Alberta got turned on seeing these 2 men have sex with each other. And seeing her turned on turned Bob on. Bob copied some gay sex tapes for me, and he invited me to come watch his straight sex videos with him. He said he could watch the beautiful women, and I could watch the handsome men. Bob had sex with other women, including a Catholic nun friend in that town. I still have a cassette tape Bob gave me many years ago, a conversation he and Alberta had in bed as they had sex. And Bob was asking Alberta, his wife, about her sex with a hot young man friend earlier. Hearing how turned on Alberta was in sex with that hot young man turned Bob on, and he kept asking her questions to get her to tell more of how she enjoyed sex with that hot young man. And I have that cassette tape at home from many, many years ago. And one special man Alberta had sex with, she made a popsicle from some of his cum. And she kept the popsicle in the freezer and would take it out sometimes and suck it as she thought of that man. The men and women Bob and Alberta had sex with were their friends, not strangers. I wish I could remember all that Bob told me about their sex lives. Bob died at 94 in 2005, 20 years ago. And Alberta died over 14 years before that. They were married 48 years when she died. Alberta was Bob's #1 woman, and after her death from cancer, Bob found no woman as special as Alberta. And they both were very, very kind to me. They lived not in Paris, not in New York, not in San Francisco, but Freeport, Illinois, a town of 20-some thousand people. And most people who knew them had no idea what went on sexually behind closed doors in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And they were far more sexually free and liberated than many uptight, jealous young couples today. And many married men and women who have sex with other people, but then sadly, they lie to their spouse and deny. They won't own up to the truth. Sadly. Terrible. In South Africa, after many years of bloody, cruel white supremacy against blacks, there were many meetings for truth and reconciliation taking place across Africa, South Africa, for speaking the truth about the white people's tortures, murders of black people, and to then bring whites and blacks together as equals and neighbors to stop the white evils toward blacks. And if white police confessed honestly the evils they had committed against blacks, they could avoid prosecution, they could avoid punishment in prison. One elderly black South African woman had suffered terrible losses at the hands of a brutal white murderer under racist white supremacy. And she gave her testimony, along with many, many other black people who had suffered hell under white supremacy in South Africa. And this black woman stood in an emotionally charged courtroom. She listened to a group of white police officers confess the atrocities they had perpetrated in the name of white supremacy, apartheid. And Officer Vanderbroek confessed his personal responsibility in the death of this black woman's son. And along with others, Vanderbroek shot her 18-year-old son at point-blank range. And the group of these white racist cops partied while they burned his body, the 18-year-old son of this black woman, and turned it over and over on the fire until it was completely reduced to ashes. 8 years later, the same white cop, Vanderbroek, and others arrived to take her husband. A few years later, shortly after midnight, Vanderbroek again appeared to this woman and took her to a place beside a river. And on a wood pile, her husband lay bound. And these white racist cops forced her to watch as they poured gasoline over this black woman's husband's body and ignited the flames that consumed his body. And the last words she heard her husband being burned alive say, the last words she heard him say, "Forgive them." And now Vanderbroek stood before this black woman, awaiting her judgment. Vengeance seemed inevitable. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission officers asked this woman what she wanted. She said, "I want 3 things. I want Mr. Vanderbroek to take me to the place where they burned my husband's body. I would like to gather up the dust and give him a decent burial. And second, Mr. Vanderbroek took all my family away from me. I still have a lot of love to give. And twice a month, I would like Vanderbroek who had killed her husband, killed her 18-year-old son, to come to the ghetto, spend a day with me, twice a month, so I can be a mother to him. Third, I would like Mr. Vanderbroek to know that he's forgiven by God and that I forgive him too. And I would like someone right now to come and lead me by the hand to where he is, so that I can embrace him, I can hug him, and he can know my forgiveness is real. And as they led this elderly black woman across the silent courtroom, the white racist officer, Vanderbroek, fainted. He was overwhelmed by the love and the forgiveness of this black woman whose husband and son he had killed. And in the courtroom, someone began singing Amazing Grace, and gradually others joined in until finally everyone there was singing that familiar hymn, Amazing Grace. John Newton, a white man, wrote the words of Amazing Grace. John Newton had been a brutal white slave trader, guilty of the kidnapping, the torture, the murder of many black people. But John Newton changed. John Newton worked to stop the slavery of black people. And he wrote Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Now I, Don Schrader, no longer believe in a fair, loving, all-powerful parent God, but I know with much help we can wake up, we can change from our evil ways, we can forgive our enemies even if we are not believers in a fair, loving parent God. My granny, my dear granny, was my mother's mother. My mother, dad, brother, and I lived with Granny in the Illinois farmhouse where my mother was born in 1907, 118 years ago. And Granny and I slept in the same bed for 7 years, from when I was 5 until 12 years old. Granny read many books to me. Granny pronounced hundreds of words for me to spell. I won the county spelling contest when I was in 5th grade. Granny had memorized poems, and she spoke those poems with deep feeling. And one poem, I wish I had copies of all those poems that she knew by heart, but I don't. One poem that she spoke with deep feeling was about an older couple, husband and wife, back east as they look forward to their move out west. And it says, "Here comes the stage to take us to the train, and our children's children way out west will make us young again." When I was a boy, My mother, my dad, my granny, and I had never visited New Mexico. We had no idea that many years later, New Mexico out west would be my main home. And when I was 12, Granny went to the hospital diagnosed with cancer of the liver and the bowel. She suffered a colostomy, a hole made in her side for her shit because of cancer of her bowel. Granny lived for another year and a half in hospital and nursing home, but she never saw her farm home again. When I was 13, I stood beside her bed in the hospital as she died at 89. Granny was the first person I ever saw die. The first person I ever saw die. I'm deeply indebted to dear Granny. Almost no diabetes among Native Americans before the Europeans invaded. Now, diabetes is a terrible epidemic among Native Americans. Diabetes causes strokes. Diabetes causes toes, feet, legs chopped off. Diabetes causes blindness. Diabetes causes kidney disease. Diabetes often leads to dialysis because of the kidney disease. And the three white killers, white sugar, white flour, lard, cause diabetes. The three white killers, white sugar, white flour, lard, cause fat bodies, cancer, heart disease, alcoholism. Fry bread is not traditional Native American food. Fry bread is reservation food from the white killers' white flour and lard. The U.S. government gave Indian people the white flour and lard. White killers. Fry bread is slow poison. No matter how much you like the taste, it's slow poison. Fry bread causes diabetes, cancer, heart disease, fat bodies, alcoholism. And parents, all parents of whatever color, never reward your children with sugar shit. Ice cream, cake, sodas, pie, donuts, cookies. Parents, set an example and never eat the sugar shit yourselves. Instead, eat lots of healthy sweets. Fresh, whole fruit. Fresh, whole fruit. Not fruit juice. We need the whole fruit. Chew it if you can, but for me, who have no teeth, if the fruit is not soft enough, I blend it in my smoothies. Sugar shit is slow poison. And when parents reward kids with sugar shit dessert, and many kids grow up then connecting sugar shit, ice cream, cake, cookies, donuts, pie, with their parents' approval. They think that's a sign my parents loved me, and no meal is complete without the sugar shit. So never eat it yourselves, parents, and never serve it to your kids if you care a damn about their health. As adults, they feel no lunch, no dinner is complete without a sugar shit dessert. As adults, when they feel depressed or lonely, they may then reach for sugar shake. Feed your children healthy plant foods, preferably raw, not cooked. No meat, no dairy, no sodas, no sugar shit, no grains. The U.S. did 66 atomic and hydrogen bomb tests on the Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands during the 1940s and 50s. The U.S. government intentionally, deliberately, left the inheritance of a neighboring island behind. Why? In order to gauge the effects of radioactive fallout on humans. And one elderly woman told of giving birth years before to lifeless blobs of flesh and stillborn infants. Why? The end result of genetic mutations brought on by massive exposure to radioactive fallout from the U.S. atomic and hydrogen bomb tests. Children born with horrible birth defects, leaving them with no muscle coordination. Old newsreels repeatedly refer to these islanders as amiable savages. And a taped message showing a smiling, now get this, a smiling President Reagan bidding the newly independent Marshall Islanders good luck. Did he know nothing of the horrible, evil cruelty of the United States in 66 atomic and hydrogen bomb tests in that region? And the cruelty that continued well into the 80s. Did he not give a damn about their lives? Talk about violent street gang members, mafia members, cartel members showing no conscience. President Ronald Reagan. A woman wrote, "These people who write in with sympathy for the poor teenagers of divorced or separated parents make me ill," she says. "I wish I had divorced my husband long before my children were teenagers. They would probably be much better adjusted to life than they are now." She says, "I asked my 14-year-old son if he wanted his father to move back in. His dad was hanging around the house at mealtimes. My son was a quiet boy, a deep thinker. He said, 'Mom, I like Dad better when he does not live here.' She says my son is now 34. On a recent visit, I asked him if he ever remembered seeing his father put his arms around me, his wife, or kiss me. And he said, once, when he was leaving town. This man mentally abused the children, mentally abused me. I could go on for hours," she says. "I can truthfully say that I've been happier the last 18 years since my divorce than I have ever been. I've adjusted pretty well, but my son needs counseling to get on with his life." And this woman says, "The bottom line is there are worse things than a broken home. Peace Pilgrim, whom I met years ago, wrote this poem, War. On the scarred battlefield where they forced me to go, I met a man that they said was my enemy, and I ran him through with my blade. And when I pulled it out and his blood gushed forth, I was suddenly filled with racking remorse. I killed a man, I said. He was slim, youthful, frightened, like me. Not a devil, as they said he would be. They sent me to kill you, he sighed. By God, I wish you had done so, I swore. Why, I don't even know what I'm fighting for. Nor I. He breathed and died. The powerful poem War by Peace Pilgrim, whom I knew many years ago. I want always to be open to make wise changes in how I live. I do not ever want to get stuck in ruts. I do not want to keep doing something just because I've always done it that way for many years. I've made many huge changes in my 79 years, and I want to stay ready to make more changes until the day I die. If I learn wise new ways or wise old ways to live. Many people have taught me, many people have loved me, many people have inspired me. I collect wisdom to live it, to share it with anyone interested. I'm deeply indebted to a great variety of many people. I thank Mark, Eddie, Noah, Jonah, Travis for helping me many dozens of times for my program. And I thank all of you watching, and I welcome you to speak with me wherever you see me, if you want to. I treasure heart-to-heart conversations. I love personal questions. My fresh fist to your health. Thank you.
Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on.